We retrieved what was left of the Major. A ceremony was held at the Punch Bowl, a volcanic crater that is the national cemetery of the Pacific. I hardly recognized the general in his full dress uniform. He spoke, ending with the famous saying, changing it a bit, ask not for whom the bell tolls, for it tolls for all of us. His helicopter later landed in Fort Shafter, on the grass in the center of Palm Circle, causing quite a stir. But, indeed, here he was the official commander, and not the man who never was.
All is never as it seems.
The Diet General reminded the lieutenant.
You guys came through for me, and a heck of a turnaround. The rescuers could stay there for the minute, as they were bound by their orders, but they would have waited all night for you if they could have. One must not be late.
Indeed, I was almost a late Austin torn, but for a luckish wind that carried me on its wings.
But for that you would have been on time for your funeral.
Good one, General, but I'm now reborn to punctuality.
That you are. What do you make of this so-called enemy that cuts down all the professional doctors and others of such high caliber?
They are steeled, and will never know until the end draws nigh.
The pity that man is yet an infant species.
We see many good and bad things directly, person to person, via the actual.
Such are the good civil laws and good human values taught.
The problem becomes when we see from no direction but the imagined, via the unreal.
These good things, merely pronounced, also define our bad counterpart.
One then forgets their source, leaping into adoption, becoming with them one. Thus, the ideas must be protected.
Anger arises toward the contrary, as emotion stains the brain.
Then, evil is done in the name of good.
And all these good things eventually come to a bloody end.
Say and do what you will, before it's too late.
Good words, soldier. Any hostile casualties?
An accurate count of 106, plus up to 20 indeterminate from the chopper fire, upon its departure, plus an uncountable but large number from the airstrike.
I figure. Then what was left of them were drawn to you.
It was so.
Effective but not very good for one's health, yet unavoidable. Your tardiness is excused.
Thanks for your being, General.
And you, too, but I cannot call you a lieutenant.
Since I don't exist?
No, because you are now a captain.
Thanks.
And with that comes
or even more responsibility and satisfaction. The new action with Section 2 went fairly well. Section 2 was now into the sun, it casting off ballast, the Section 2 leader finally arriving and telling the general of for whom the bell may have tolled, while he oversaw the stowage of his wounded. The general paced the shore, knowing that but 60 seconds remained. He had a feeling that his new captain would be on time this time.
You're 1 second early, my good man.
From what I could see back through the woods with the third eye in the back of my head, but mostly heard with my ears, was that the airstrike was dead on target.
Lucky for you.
I live on luck.
Probability has no memory, Major.
Major?
Yes, and that is as far as you go, if you wish, for anything beyond that is rather mostly a desk job with no desk.
Before all this, my friends, one by one, from high school, who hadn't gone on to college, had died in Vietnam while I was obtaining a degree. The years went by, and my best friend, Joe, returned safely from the ongoing war, telling me all the gory details, and also how to be an effective helicopter door gunner. For example, he said, don't sweep from the direction behind the fleeing enemies and into them, but sweep from the head of the man back into them, so that the leads don't escape, so that they all may run into your fire. I doubted if I would ever need this information, since my deferment was holding up fine, and surely the war would end within a few years. I graduated college, and worked for a year or so, and then the draft notice came. In January 1970, I flew the tapes of the Army supply and intelligence systems into Long Bin, installing them there. After having done the same in Okinawa, we were grounded until the next day's morning, due to rockets landing within the fort. The new warrant officer from the 1st Aviation Brigade and 2nd Field Force, who would courier me and the tapes northward, came knocking, saying how a previous Healy was shot down, all perishing. We have a substitute ship and a new pilot, me. We are clear to go alone. It wasn't the best helicopter, but it functioned, and was armed at the doors and had cannon in front. We then flew 100 miles or more over the jungle to a remote base, the pilot again noting that a previous courier's helicopter had been shot down. I know, I replied. That was one of my predecessors. I fly all the routes now. Even before that incident, the civil service workers hadn't really wanted this delivery job, for they had families or had gotten tired of it, and, of course, after the incident, they didn't want any part of it whatsoever. But I saw it as adventure, and I still do. We had made one installation and were on to the next, when we took some fire from the ground somewhere. We had a fuel leak and some smoke. We headed towards the nearest fire base for an analysis and repairs, although there was no answer from them. Upon some dissension, we discovered that the base had been overrun. They were soon firing at us as the copter strained to ascend, the pilot emptying his cannons. Yet the onslaught continued. I looked at the pilot and said, I can do this, and so I took to the left draw gun and emptied it into the North Vietnamese troops, putting the box of tapes in front of my legs and feet. For more protection, we were ascending, but still within range, so the pilot rotated the ship, and I took to the right door gun, our limited ammo soon running out. I then fired a few useless shots with my pistol. Thanks, Joe, I thought, as we cleared the area and limped very many miles to the next fire base, from which we got an answer and a fine welcome. I had but a minor scratch. I had arrived in the war zone, which was more like the Twilight Zone, so it was that the DIA general had read the warrant officer's report and had appreciated our initiative, and so we were invited to meet with the wizard. the CSC PAC unit, I ended up in expands to Computer Systems Command for the Pacific Theater, and was located on Palm Circle, back toward the rear gate of Fort Shafter in the Hawaiian island of Oahu. It was composed of Special Army, Civil Service, and iSpooks, and was there for the Army supply system, intelligence, and nuclear concerns. There was no internet, for this was long before Al Gore invented it. These days, I believe the place is called still CSC, but as Computer Sciences Corporation, still at Fort Shafter. Also, computer security concerns, at some point, since I had college learning yet fresh in my mind, as well as a year at IBM. I did well on the Army tests, and was able to choose my destination and UT, although drafted. The captain back at my basic training at Fort Polk had pulled me off of an early departing bus bound for my initial, provisional advanced training in artillery at Fort Sill, an order that had taken all this time, 4 weeks, actually, to get changed. He said I was going to work on a nuclear reactor. Well, that wasn't quite it, or even close. I remained there as a drill sergeant for a month before the Army got their act together on the new order. The Oakland transfer station was both hell and boredom for a week, as I guarded a dumpster at night, although having become a Spec 4 already, and then a cargo transport to cuss some tanks and munitions onto Honolulu. It was glorious, that open-air terminal, and the breathless surroundings revealed just outside. Little did I know then that I was seeing a mountain off in the distance where I would build a retreat. Just a tent actually, at first, where I first thought about the toe, at night under the stars, a place that would be revisited again and again over the years, even now, spurning the barracks after a few days, which were RA, regular Army, and therefore wild, and before further OCDIA training, I moved into a near waterfront Waikiki apartment. They had given me the first 3 weeks off to explore the island. Consequently, and even in between my training at the hardcore Schofield Barracks, I enjoyed some vacation trips to the Army bases in the Far East, some dangerous and some not, delivering computer tape updates of the Army supply and intelligence systems. It was and was not a big deal, but they surely didn't want any of this stuff to fall into the wrong hands, which would only be the Chinese or the Russians, the North Vietnamese probably not even knowing what the computer was for. The previous courier had been just shot down, and none of the civil service guys, having families, wanted to go. So they, and all, said, "Hey, let's send Austin," said he'd get a taste of the theater of operations, the